And we are live with the Lerna team. What's up, Austin? What's up, James? How y'all doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Don't all speak at once now.
We need an order.
Okay.
He said your name first, so I was letting you
Yeah,
go
I said
first.
Austin
Oh,
first.
okay.
That's alphabetical. So, how you
I was
doing,
just trying
Austin?
to do good. Doing good. Nice
Good
sunny
deal.
day. Cold outside. Yeah.
What's up, Citadel RS? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're ready for some Lerna. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Doing well.
Still holding the entire Lerna world on your shoulders, along with Austin, I guess. Your collective shoulders.
Yeah, it's our own little corner of the world, but it's a fun challenge.
Yeah. It's really cool to see. Well, first of all, just the story behind Lerna. That's always an interesting thing because for us coming up with NX, Lerna was always sort of the thing we were looking to, the legacy thing that was in place, and to now be acting as stewards of it. A really cool role for us.
Yeah, Lerna was the thing that set the bar for what it meant to manage multiple packages in a JavaScript monorepo. It was the creation by the Babel team. It was initially their script and utilities for managing Babel, and they spun it out into its own project. And it was the tool for managing monorepos in JavaScript. When it was made at the end of 2015, early 2016, the world was a different place. Like the JavaScript ecosystem was very different. Particularly in the form of the package managers were totally different. They were, well, PNPM didn't exist, and Yarn was on the horizon. Maybe the next year, 2017 was Yarn, maybe, or 2018, not sure. So it was really just NPM that was in the mix, and it didn't have any native sense of multiple packages. You had to CD into various directories and run install commands and stuff like that. So Lerna had to supplement all of those shortcomings of the wider ecosystem. Whereas now, NX evolved at a time where those things were being provided by the package managers, so it could skip that step. It didn't need to focus on package management. Whereas with Lerna, we have a lot of legacy code in there that focuses on package management that we still have to maintain right now, but isn't actually even as good as the package manager tooling. So we're encouraging folks wherever possible to switch away from things like Lerna Bootstrap, which was the old tooling which needed to plug that gap, and move towards using their native package manager's brilliant tooling around workspaces. So NPM workspaces, PNPM workspaces, or Yarn workspaces. And if you do that, you'll no longer need Lerna Bootstrap or Lerna Add or Lerna Link, and your life will get a lot simpler. And that will then really give us the chance to let Lerna shine in the areas it's uniquely good at, which is versioning and publishing.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's really good at running tasks for you as well. And recently, we've added a new backend to that task runner, which is delegating to NX instead of delegating to two other libraries it used to delegate to. Mm-hmm. So we are bringing kind of existing experience we have from NX over to benefit Lerna users without Lerna users needing to care too much about the implementation details.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, as we get into this, we'll let some people file in for a few more minutes here too, but we'll get to live coding, like a fresh Lerna workspace, and see how some of that stuff works. It's really cool to see, as you mentioned, the work that y'all have been able to do in terms of just having Lerna gracefully step out of the way for like the workspace functionality to come in, to the point where when I was initially like working through some of the stuff, I couldn't really tell where Lerna started and like Yarn workspaces came in to start doing some of that. It was all very seamless. So yeah, props to y'all on that effort. And similarly, where Lerna started and NX stopped as well. So,
yep,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, y'all mentioned too that I guess while we're waiting for people to file in, some of the work that y'all have been doing has been to make Lerna especially friendly to newer contributors. So I don't know, James, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yep. So as I mentioned, the history of Lerna, obviously, it's a very old project. It's been going for a long time. That means it's been very successful. Like, you don't get old projects that haven't been successful. So that meant the code base has had hundreds of contributors over many years, which means different styles of coding, different patterns of coding, different time-based preferences, like the way we all
2015 was
used
a
to,
different era,
exactly.
right?
The way we all used to write JavaScript in 2015 is different to the way we write JavaScript now. But also the tooling and the ecosystem has evolved. So TypeScript is something that we pretty much take for granted in a lot of circumstances, particularly us writing software at Narwhal, for example. And we miss that a lot in the Lerna code base because it's a sizable code base. There's lots of different modules, and there isn't an easy way to jump between them and refactor across boundaries and have protection from tooling to tell you, hey, you've broken an assumption here or whatever. So over the Christmas break was a great time for me to spend extra time kind of implementing TypeScript across the code base. Because it was not something we wanted to rush into. We took over the project in May last year, and we knew it was going to be a big effort, and it wasn't worth holding up adding value for contributors and making sure that we were on the latest and greatest of our dependencies, all that kind of stuff. So it was never something we were going to tear straight into just because we wanted to, but instead taking the time to have those features go in first, those fixes go in first, and then do it at Christmas time has worked out really well. So that's all been merged now. And new contributors or existing contributors revisiting the code base should find it much, much easier to navigate now. Instead of 62 different packages, we only have 17, and a lot of those 17 are in there for backwards compatibility reasons. The main package is the Lerna package, because that is the usage of Lerna that is common across everybody. And we have this core that is made up of functions around dealing with NPM registry, GitHub, GitLab, whatever we're talking to. And you can jump between the definitions, and you can refactor things. And so you'll find a much nicer experience if you come and contribute to Lerna now. So yeah, that's been a really rewarding effort, I think.
Very cool. I should post here too. We'll drop in a link to our community Slack if y'all want to get involved with some of the stuff we're doing, including stuff with Lerna. And also, I think you had extended generally for people using legacy Lerna packages or Lerna workspaces, where we're willing to come in and help where we can to help you upgrade to the latest version. So
yeah, definitely.
I do want to say hi to Sheikh Salman. Welcome, sir. Looks like you're asking a question about React apps, bringing 3 together in one repo. So a question here: should all dependencies be listed in the root package JSON or each package? Generally, we would advise keeping all of your dependencies on the same version. So you'd want to keep that in the root package JSON, so you can keep those things together. So when you upgrade one project to a new version of a package or dependency, you can upgrade them all. But if you wanted to specifically break things out so that you had a different version for one specific application or one specific React project, that's where you would start to bring in different package JSONs and having different dependencies across them. And yeah, it sounds like that's what's happening here if you're using an older version in React for one of your projects versus others. So yeah, the issue that you mentioned here, that looks like probably a React specific problem. So I don't know if there's much that X can do for you there, sir. But yeah, yeah.
That's where you would leverage the workspaces I mentioned at the beginning of the call, in case you weren't in there yet. So npm workspaces or yarn workspaces or pnpm workspaces, whatever package manager you're using, your nested package JSON, which has the older version of React in it, will be picked up by your workspaces installation. And you would end up with the nested node modules in that package location, which is fine. That's what you'd want. So that would access that local copy of React instead of the one for the rest of the workspace.
Yep. And that local copy would be isolated from all your other packages, so they can't pick it up on accident either.
Yep. Cool. Well, I think we have like something approaching a quorum. Are y'all ready to go ahead and start live coding?
Yeah.
Our silly little example?
Yep.
Cool. Well, let me know, y'all, if y'all's faces start covering up the screen, because I'm notoriously bad at that. But We've got a little directory here, and we'll make a directory, and we'll call it like guess we'll call it like for the lulz, because we'll be making like a is odd and an is even package and get it published on npm, because apparently that's a thing that has thousands of downloads right now. So we'll do that, and I'll cd into it, and we'll open up code here. And we have a nice empty directory at this point. So I think the first thing I'll want to do is just like initialize Git, because create Lerna won't do that for us. Is that correct?
I definitely remember off the top of my head if that is correct or not.
I'm pretty sure I need to do it myself, or it will be independent of the Lerna creates commit, or the Lerna command. So yeah, got that. So Git is initialized.
We create a Git ignore for you. That's why I was hesitant. I couldn't remember if we initialize Git for you or not automatically.
Gotcha. Yeah, I do remember that. But let's go ahead and run that. So I'm going to run npx Lerna. I'm going to make sure to do at latest, because I think
so we can't see that command, Zach, because of what you said about the images.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We see it now. There you go. Yep. Cheers.
Yep.
Cheers, James. We'll do latest, and we'll do init. And that should go out and create some stuff for us. Let me move this over. Maybe that makes it a little too skinny, but maybe that's better. I don't know.
It's not too bad yet.
Yeah. Cool. So now we can see, like we said, we can see what exactly Lerna did. It also tells us right here. So we're using the most recent version of the CLI, 6.4.1. We created a git ignore. Let's take a look at that. Node modules. That's a good, solid choice.
So we got good first ignore.
Yeah, and we can see we're already using workspaces, so that's great, and configured here inside of the package JSON. So packages is empty right now, but this is where we'll create some libs as we do it. I'm going to run yarn here, I think, just to make sure.
You don't have to use the name packages if you don't want to, but that's just a very common name to want to use for the kind of workspaces that Lerna manages for you. And obviously, if you do want to change the packages directory, you'll need to update that workspaces configuration in your package JSON.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. And that workspaces configuration, that's not just specific to Lerna. That's what's used by Yarn workspaces, NPM workspaces. So there's PNPM workspaces. Like there's documentation on that in the package managers as well.
Right. So specifically, I guess this workspaces array inside the package JSON. This is completely Lerna agnostic versus use workspaces here in Lerna. That's just communicating to Lerna, hey, defer to the workspaces, like Yarn workspaces, because that's the package manager we'll be using.
Lerna needs to know how to resolve your packages in the workspace. So you can either let it do its kind of historical custom way of doing it, or you can just delegate that whole thing to the package manager. Given you've already had to tell one tool, hey, here's my packages, here's where to find them, you may as well just reuse that concept in Lerna as well. And then there's no risk of subtle differences between them either.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right. Well, we've got our Lerna workspace initialized. I think we'll go ahead and add our first package. So I'll run npx Lerna create, and I guess we'll call it, since our workspace is called for the lulz, we'll do for the lulz is odd. So point of this package will just be to export a simple function called is odd. So we can get those precious npm downloads on this, because that's something a lot of people need. And it's not, people apparently don't know about modulo, so they can download it. But yeah, we've got our first package now. So I guess what we can see, just looking at the Git changes, we can see what Lerna did for us by adding this new package.
The command is actually still running over there, Zach. You can override the package name. Call. You can override the package name if you want, or you can just hit enter. And it'll ask you a number of other things about the package.
Yeah, good call. So this will actually fill in what the package JSON is going to look like. I'm actually surprised that things have already been written to the file system at this point. That's interesting.
Yeah,
yeah.
Lerna doesn't have the concept of a virtual file system or anything. So it's created your test files, and now it wants to create your package JSON, but it's waiting for you to confirm the details of
Got
that
it.
package JSON file.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So this is maybe very similar to what you'd get when you'd run like npm in it, right? I think those similar questions get asked.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll just hit enter through all these things. I think we'll end up changing the entry point manually later, but yeah, that looks good for now.
Many of those properties can be specified with options on the create command, or if you don't want those prompts, you can just use the -y or --yes option and just skip that and pretty much use it to just generate the blank one for you.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, so that's kind of like skip interactive from NX.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we've created our first package. I'm going to go ahead and CD into that. So we'll go to packages / for the lulz is odd. And we'll start by doing all the manual stuff I always forget to do. So I wrote it on a list over here. We're going to yarn add -d to add TSC and jest to get those installed.
We'll add those at the root though, right? Rather than inside the nested package, because we'll need them for both packages.
Yeah, I think what will happen here, because we're using the workspaces, is we'll see I think the way it works with Yarn workspaces is we'll see in the node modules, we'll see TSC and jest, but they'll be symlinked to our root node modules by default. I believe that's how it works.
In terms of what we'd usually encourage folks to do with dev tooling, though, for shared dev tooling that isn't going to be to do with the runtime behavior of your application, you may as well share that definition at the root in your dev dependency. Root.
Yeah, because you want those to be all those to be on the same version.
Exactly. It's just one fewer thing where subtle differences can creep in for no real benefit, particularly with a new workspace. Obviously, you might have all kinds of reasons why you're bringing old packages together and they need to be on subtly different versions or whatever. But for new stuff, I think having it be at the roots. For runtime dependencies, obviously it makes sense to define those nested. But for dev dependencies, where you're going to use them across multiple packages, it kind of makes sense to have them at the root.
Let's go and revert that then. I'll switch back to the root and we'll add it. I think I need the -w option if I'm going to add at the root too.
That's right.
So that'll just communicate to our workspaces that we actually want it for at the root, confirming that. Because otherwise, I think it would warn us that it may not be doing what we think it's doing. Now, when we have this, okay, at our root we've added TSC and jest to our dependencies, and now I can come back. We can go back into packages. The lulz is odd.
So again, what Zach did would have worked. It's just as kind of like a management organizational optimization that you just have one fewer thing that can be subtly weirdly different.
Yeah, you don't want that. Probably. It's possible that you may. That you may want a different version of TypeScript for one package than another. And that's where you would have done it the way I was trying to do it initially.
Yeah.
So, cool. I think now that we have that set up and we're back inside of our package, next step is to initialize TSC. So we'll run TSC init, and this should go out and create our package for us. This is not the TSC command you are looking for. Interesting. I think this is actually like a warning that TSC will give us if we're not installed in the local node modules. But
try running it with yarn rather than
let me
npx,
try that.
Given you've used yarn as the package manager.
Looks like that failed as well.
I have never seen this output before, so this is exciting.
Yeah. I hit this earlier when I was just doing the dry run yesterday, but yeah, it seems like the way I had done it, which was to install it locally for the package, is like a way of getting around it. But
yeah, hang on, sorry, wait. You installed TSC at the root.
Oh, but I never installed TypeScript, did I?
Yeah, TSC is not a package, right? It's not. I mean, it clearly is a package, but it's nothing to do with the TypeScript package, is it?
Right.
TSC command comes from the TypeScript package.
Gotcha.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
this message will be coming from the TSC package. So probably the TypeScript team has published a package called TSC just to avoid somebody doing something dodgy with it, and then they're printing this warning for us.
Yeah, well, that's nice. Okay, so it sounds like we need to install TypeScript at the root. Yeah, let's do that. I wonder how I was able to do this actually before in the dry run. Somehow I got around the TSC.
I don't know.
Global install of TypeScript, maybe.
Oh, probably. That's probably it. But yeah. Okay, let's get back to here. Now we can run TSC init. There we go. We've done it. So that created our TSC config for us, and we'll need to adjust some things in here to kind of do the setup that I want to have for this demo, which is really I want to like have things written. We're going to use TypeScript, so we'll need like a types, a way of outputting types, and I think there's just a option here in the TS config for this specifically. I think that's called declaration. So if we find declaration, maybe like that, there we go. We can turn that on. I think right here is the out directory. We'll set this to output to a dist file. So we'll hit save on that. And next up, we'll want to adjust the package JSON here. And this is just to adjust for some of those things that we had just seen. So first up, I think we want to switch our main. So right now it's in lib, so we want to change this to dist. And it's still going to be JS because this is what we're going to output from TSC. And then here we'll have a types in our package.json as well. And this will be the same, but it will be a d.ts file. So when we run TSC, these two things will be created. And we're telling sort of our package manager, here's where to find them. I think that's mainly it. I guess we have to touch our files to point to dist now. And inside of scripts, we'll adjust this as well. So we'll add a build script, like so. And this will just be TSC. And then for testing, the way I want to do it is we'll start by like hard coding the dependencies. So initially we'll want to run, I guess, Lerna, run test, or rather run build, and scope is for the lulls is odd, and then we'll run jest, I think. Let's see. I think that looks good. So next, we'll want to add our tests, which we already have our file in here, but we'll say
so Lerna doesn't care about the implementation details of any of these scripts. It generates, when you generate a new package with Lerna, it generates a working test for you out of the box, but it uses the native testing, like assert things, assert functions. So Zach has chosen to use Jest as his test runner because he wants kind of a more fully functional testing setup, but Lerna doesn't care. Lerna can invoke any NPM script you want. It just so happens that Zach's personal preference here is to go with Jest.
Yeah, thanks for the call out there, James. Yeah, so I guess when we were touching our package JSON, there was already the test script in there. So had we run that, because we were using Lerna create, that would have generated us something that would have passed initially. And like you said, wouldn't be any specific framework or tied to any specific framework. But because I like having these, like the test syntax, or I think I like having this test syntax. What's going on? There we go. Test is odd. We'll just let Copilot do the rest, and we'll just watch. But there's our test for us, and our require. I think we'll actually want to pull this in from dist because we'll want to test our built code. We'll call it that .js. Hit the save.
I think we'll need a leading // won't we? Otherwise, I think it'll try and resolve it from node modules.
Yeah, that would not be good. So yeah, I think we actually need a // right? Because that'll be hoisted up one level from our test, which we're inside.
I'm so not used to the default little
I know
arrows. It's hard to see the indentation there. It looks like JS is almost at the top level, but yeah, I can see it now.
Gotcha. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, setting up stuff for Lerna is always an interesting piece for me because I'm used to NX, which like there's a generator to do all of the stuff I'm doing right now manually. So
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So create the command to create a new Lerna package that gets you to a starting point, and maybe part of the benefit there is it's completely open as to which tools you want to bring in. You can
Exactly,
pretty easily follow their getting started, which sometimes may be a challenge for NX when you're working with like a single version policy and figuring out how to nest things inside of projects and whatnot. So that may be one person's maybe preference for using Lerna, though our package-based NX configurations now pretty much handle those great as well. But yeah, we've got our function here for isodd thanks to Copilot. And I think everything's set up now, so we can maybe try testing this out just by running some Lerna commands. So I'll clear this out. We can run, I think just npx Lerna run build right now because it's our only project. And that built stuff looks like it added it to the dist. That actually reminded me of a step we probably forgot, which was adding dist to our git ignore. Let's do that. There we go. So those went gray now, so I know they won't be tracked by git. And it says now Lerna is powered by NX, but we'll notice I think without the without adding NX, which we'll do later, this is not cached yet. So we are running this fully each time we run it until we initialize NX, which we'll see a bit later. And
yeah, so NX is fully running. We're not telling it anything about the tasks that we're running. So it doesn't make assumptions about, oh, we could cache this or we can't cache this.
Right,
It's just
right.
it's waiting to be told about that kind of stuff. But it's NX. The NX task runner is being leveraged already.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, and like James said at the very beginning, we didn't have to explicitly install NX. It's used directly by Lerna in the backend.
Gotcha. So I guess the pieces NX needs is kind of like telling us that this is a cacheable operation, one, and then two, like where to find the outputs of that, which I guess we'll see. We'll see that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But so we were able to just run this one build because that's our only package right now. But I believe if we can also use the scope option to say specifically just run it for this one package, right? So doing this is functionally the same right now.
Yeah.
I think we already saw this. If we go to our package JSON file, not the root one, but the one specifically for this, we're already kind of leveraging that inside of the test here to make sure it only gets run for the one package. So I can also show that. Run test. Hopefully we should see this pass. Nope. Looks like we have a failure here. Let's see. Is
Didn't
odd
write
is
the
not
function
a function.
yet. Did you write the function yet?
I think I did. I think I may have imported it poorly inside of the test because that looks like
it's a named export and you've done it
Yes.
as the default.
Exactly. All right. Let's see if that fixes it. There we go. So as we can see, because of the way the package JSON is set up, let's go back to that real quick. We kind of like manually set these dependencies because we know if we ever wanted to run a test, we'd need to make sure that the build is there already before running Jest, just because of the way we're having Jest set up inside of our test file to import this from the distributable. So, and that's done kind of strategically so we can show how we can remove that later on. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll create a second package now, which is like an is-even package. And we'll have to run through a lot of this boring stuff again. So let me go ahead. I think I could just go up in my stuff.
You want to CD to the root first. You're in the isodd directory.
Yeah,
right
good
now.
call. CD. If we did a Lerna create nested inside, what happens then? Would that not automatically hoist up, or would it try to create something inside? Do you know?
I don't know, Zach.
Oh my.
It,
We
I
should
don't
try
know
it.
the answer to that.
it might work. We could try it. It might work, but we
You wanna try?
generally recommend. Yeah, let's go for it.
I mean, the package's definition that Lerna has is centralized, so
Yeah.
it should know to put it in the right location, even if you run it in a nested location.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's try it. We're doing it live.
So
I think this will
Lerna
work,
commands
actually.
are designed to be run from the root of your workspace.
All right. Let's see. So we're running it from inside.
You could pass -y if you wanted this time to
Oh yeah.
to just say yes to it's too late now because it's not a virtual thing, so it's already done some stuff.
Oh gosh, what did I do? No. Okay. Well, that's okay. We'll.
I mean, you could just delete
this.
it. You could just delete it. Yeah.
There we go. It's gone. -y is all we need.
Yeah. Either -y or -- yes. Either one is the same thing.
I like -y because that's less keystrokes on both sides. So
Yeah.
good deal. It looks like that worked, even though we ran it from inside of here. I did try that in my try run, so I knew this was going to work. Actually, interestingly, we do have to run nx init from the root layer, which was surprising to me. But we'll get to that later. But yeah, is there. I guess we got to cd down and back up, or probably don't need to go too far. For the lulz is even. All right. So now I got to do all that boring stuff again. Let me go through my list. So we're going to, we've already got TypeScript and Jest installed. So next we're going to have to run npx tsc init. That created our tsconfig. We'll have to walk through these things again, including turning on declaration and the outer. We'll send that to dist. Whoops. Boom. And then going to our package JSON, we'll adjust some of this again. So this is going to go to dist. Main is going to be dist. Then we'll have types. This is going to be .d.ts. And let's adjust scripts here while we're here. So build. Because of the way we'll do this, we'll actually need to make sure, so we'll run TSC ultimately, but because we're going to input from is odd to implement is even, we'll also need to make sure that that build has been run. So we'll run Lerna, run build, scope equals, I was hoping Copilot would figure this out for me, but looks like it's sleeping right now. Is odd. There we go. And then here's where things get a little ridiculous because we'll need to add a test too. And so if we recall, we'll end up running Jest, but we'll also need to build first our dependencies, which right now we kind of have to keep track of, right? So we'll do for the lulz is odd. Then we'll have to build our current package, which is even, and then run Jest. So we've got kind of this like, yeah.
Maybe this would completely mess things up, but could you just do npm run build and something?
You can, but Zach is deliberately trying to illustrate how cumbersome it is to compose these things together, so we can make it better at the end. But
in my ploy.
In this case, yeah, you could avoid some duplication by doing npm run build.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but obviously Zach is going to show us how you can avoid the need for npm run build altogether as well.
Yeah, the goal will be at the end of the day, this just becomes Jest, because that's all it should be, right? Like everything else is just dependencies that we have to, at the moment, we have to manually track. But yeah, we've got that set up. Let's go ahead and add our implementation. I think there's one thing we need to do as well, but let's finish letting Copilot show off. And let's make sure we import it the right way this time. There we go.
This is a Copilot stream. Really
yes, this is just a Copilot stream. I'm just here. Copilot is driving me, ultimately.
It's got this wrong, though, right? Because we don't want to use ESM. We want to use require in this case.
You're right.
Right when we were praising it.
See, this is why we're still relevant. We still have to detect its mistakes, right?
Yep.
So... There we
Let's change it
go.
import to a
Port
const,
to
yeah.
const, yes. Or help it if I could spell.
Doesn't.
There we go. Okay, I think obviously we got to not delete but rename here to TS. And there's the whole thing right now about whether you should do specifically return types or whether just to like infer them. I am in camp explicitly define return types. Actually, James, do you have an opinion? Do you have a horse in that race?
Yeah, I'm explicit as well. Like for module boundaries, especially, like that's what matters. Like your public functions need to have a return type, because otherwise, like sure it infers the right thing right now, but somebody comes along and changes any line of the implementation of that function, they will now infer something else. And there's the original author of that function should be the one that decides this is the return type. It might have been correct when they wrote it, the inference, but it could change at any point in the future. It's less important for kind of implementation detail functions that get composed together, because as long as your outer return type is explicit, you should still be protected. But yeah, it's I saw some of that kind of Twitter war that's been going on.
Well, I have a whole theory about this. I think there's one camp of people that like TypeScript primarily for tooling, and another camp of people that like TypeScript primarily for specifically type checking and these kinds of contracts. And I think they're kind of at odds with each other right now. And we're just going to keep seeing issues like this come up with between those two camps, because I don't think they can identify that they're in two different camps. But
yeah,
maybe I don't know. That maybe I'm
so
just,
in this case, even though it is a
one.
one-line function, I think having the return type is good, because this is the key public API of this package.
Yes.
So
this, and in fact, as we have seen inside of the dist file here, like this is the fact that this contract is being exported in the d.ts file is like the important piece of this. I actually don't know if we didn't have the explicitly named this as a Boolean, would the d.ts look the same? Would it still?
It would look the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that would be the correctly inferred type at that
Got
point.
it.
So that's what it would print as well.
Gotcha. So until this, if someone were to come in and change it later, then we'd see a different DTS, even if it were inferred, versus right now, if someone were to do like, I don't know, if n equals 7 return the string yes, then it becomes a Boolean or a string completely obliviously to everyone else.
Exactly.
So let's run. I think we can do now our build.
Didn't you want to make the implementation of this use the other
I did.
function?
You're right. Let's make sure we do that. So we'll say is odd. Not n plus 1. Come on.
Plus 1 for some reason.
I guess that would work. Copilot is maybe smarter than all of us.
That is true. That is interesting. It was ahead of where my brain was then.
I know. I told you, we're just Copilot's just driving us. But yeah, this I don't think this works yet, because I think we have to add a dependencies field to our package.json here, right? So we'll add our dependencies, and and here I think we want to replace specific version with the star here, just because.
So I tend to recommend that we use a file specifier rather than a star, because a star does functionally work, but the file specifier is much more explicit that this is an intra workspace dependency, because you could use a star to mean any dependency from the registry that I don't control as well. You could say, I want to depend on React star, and that means I'll depend on any version of React. But this is very clear that I'm depending on my sibling module that lives in this same workspace.
That makes sense. For if I'm specifying a file, this is what Copilot gave me. Is this good enough? So currently,
that's correct.
Okay, cool.
That's correct.
Is there a way to do it from the root instead? Like if I had just done for the lulz, maybe packages, would this work, James, or no?
I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Let's stick with the way we know.
This is nothing to do with Lerna, by the way. This is a package manager feature. You can, with package managers, there's more than just version numbers you can use. You can use Git references. You can use npm references. You can use file specifiers. There's loads of things you can put in a string here. and the file
Yeah,
reference is an npm feature. So I'm not sure all the different strings you can put in there, but the relative path always works.
Cool.
Yeah, another thing that you can do is you can use the workspace prefix instead of file. And so you could say workspace : star. And so it'll pick any version, but it'll pick any version it finds in your workspace.
That's cool.
So that's something that has been added with Yarn, NPM, PNPM workspaces as well that Lerna will support too.
Yeah. Max coming in with the, the GitHub file of praise there. Cool. Well, let's leave it at the file for now, because
all of our minds are blown by AI doing the most basic arithmetic.
I know. Well, it's interesting to see how that would work, because initially I was like, clearly that's wrong, but I was like, wait.
Yeah, I know. We were all
right.
expecting not is odd, and then it writes a perfectly reasonable solution that's not that, and it threw us all for a loop.
Interestingly, so I play on that chess app. I don't know what it's called. Maybe it's chess.com or something like that. But they added a new AI called Chess GPT, and it's like completely a meme. It's like all of its commentary is completely wrong. It's like check the most powerful piece in chess. What? Anyways, I like that there's kind of that sense of humor around the AI right now. But yeah, I think with this in place, we can run our build now, right? So if we run npx Lerna, and we're doing this nested inside, but I need run build, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Weird things are happening because my terminal is so narrow. Maybe let's go like this and we can run it again. It's a lot of it's getting blocked by y'all now, but yeah. Even though we were nested inside, we can see that Lerna went and ran is odd and then ran is even. And I think this is going sequentially right now because we haven't initialized NX yet. And also like the dependencies are hard coded. So when it's running is even, we're actually doing like first a build of is odd and then running a build of is even. So I think we're probably building it twice. In this current thing, which it works, and we'll be
that's
sure
why
that
that's
it
why it
works.
takes twice as long to do the is even build rather than because they're doing obviously the exact same thing. It's one file being compiled with TSC, but the other one takes twice as long.
Yeah, and we're probably actually thrashing the file system now too, which is probably not great. So, sorry, I interrupted your thought, James. Keep going.
Well, so we probably aren't thrashing the file system because, as you said, like we're doing these sequentially. So one will build the dist folder, then the next one will just tear the dist folder down and build it. They won't both be trying to do it at the same time. It'll just be a waste of effort.
Right.
But as you mentioned, like that relationship that we created by putting the dependency in there, we can kind of be like, oh yeah, there is a relationship. So one build happened before the other, but we didn't actually need to do anything to create as you said, we've got duplication now because we were trying to set up a manual thing, but NX behind the scenes has actually already recognized what we want to do because there's a relationship there. So the thing that might be nice to show now is if you type NX graph into the terminal, it will visualize that relationship that we mentioned. Oops. Oh, sorry, you're only sharing one screen, aren't you?
Yeah. It opened it up in this.
NX Graph has launched this local web app on Zach's machine, and it shows what NX Task Runner behind the scenes has understood about our workspace, which is we have two packages and there's a relationship between them. You can see the arrow is pointing between them. And so these are called nodes on the dependency graph, and then the arrow is called an edge. And that edge is drawn in a specific direction. It's going from is even to is odd because is even depends on is odd. And if Zach clicks on the edge, if it clicks on the arrow, it will show us where that dependency comes about. So it shows us that it's the package JSON file of is even that causes that dependency to exist.
That's interesting. I would have thought it would have caught on the require statement, but it looks like it's just on the package.json right now.
Well, it statically already knows preferentially the package JSON. I think because it's I think only if you've got certain NX tooling, like some of the more advanced tooling, does it use the TypeScript compiler to. I think it's recognized that we're in a simple package-based monorepo, and I think it's used just analysis of package JSON files. It hasn't used the TypeScript scanner.
Gotcha.
I think that's why that's the case here. Yeah,
that makes sense. I think too. I didn't test this, but if we do Command Shift P and do the NX graph, I think we can also see that inside here. Oh, looks like it's not working right now. But ideally, it should be working inside of VS Code, so you could just see it like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and hey, what's up, Ahmed? Ahmed was on our last live stream. He's on the TRPC core team. So welcome,
Hi,
bro.
Ahmed.
Welcome to Lerna. It's
Yeah.
cool here. But yeah, I guess going along with what we had seen here, we've kind of been building up the narrative very transparently that we want to remove a lot of those dependencies now. So what we can do, I'm going to cd to the root, and we're going to run npx, nx, and init. And there's some kind of cool tooling that was here that wasn't here the last time I had kind of gone through this exercise. So pretty neat that now we kind of have this interactive script that we're working through where the nx init script has detected the different scripts that we have inside of our workspace already. And it's asking me which one of these needs to be built in order. Yeah, go ahead.
We actually have a native Lerna command for this rather than using nx init.
Yep.
Oh, should I use that one?
Yeah. So we have a command called add caching.
Okay.
In Lerna. So rather than forcing people to think in terms of NX initialization, we just wanted them to think about it in terms of an extension of what they're already doing with Lerna. So if you do Lerna add caching, this was actually the original command. The inputs for like NX init took inspiration from this.
Okay.
So if you do this one now, it's going to give you an interactive prompt to decide. So it finds
circles
those scripts
instead of checks.
Yeah. So you press the space to select them. So it's this first question is asking which of these need to consider that graph view before they're run. So do we need to do builds before we do other builds? Do we need to do builds before we do tests? Is there a relationship between those projects? And does that matter for task running? For certain types of tasks, that doesn't matter at all. But for Zach's projects here, it does matter.
Yeah. Because of the way I chose to do it, where I'm using my just test to test built code rather than test the TS files themselves.
And
so
an example of one that commonly doesn't need that is like linting, right? With linting, oftentimes you're really just looking at the files in your package, and it doesn't really care about others.
So that in that case, you can just run it as parallelized as possible. You can say lint all the things simultaneously. Whereas when you've got relationships between them, you need a smart task runner that can say, I need to run this before this and this before this. These don't need to be run, so I can parallelize those, but then this before this. And all of that is stuff that humans are not good at, but machines are really good at.
Yeah. Especially if we can set it once and forget it. And cheers to Rye in the chat there. So yeah, look, I guess we do want to hit both of these, right? Build and test. And then we can go on to which scripts are cacheable. Both of them should be.
Yep.
And then
kind of things that are not cacheable are long-running processes. So maybe you've got like a watch mode, or maybe you serve an application. Those things are not cacheable commands because they're not deterministic and they're long-running. So
yeah. So our build writes out to dist every time. Our test, I don't think we're like, if we were doing logs, we could cache those. But I'm just going to hit enter here because I don't really care about that.
If you had a coverage report from a test, that's the kind of thing you could use as an output. But
good deal. Well, I think, what did that do? Did that go ahead? Yep. It looks like it did the same thing as NX in it at the end of the day. And there was one thing I had to touch on here next, which was like the test target doesn't actually depend on other tests, but it does depend on other builds. So that's
correct. So yeah, if we were to make it that involved of the interactive CLI that you could choose any combination of anything, it would just be so difficult to program. And difficult to communicate what we were trying to say. So yeah, by default, when you say that something depends on something else, it's going to generate that boilerplate for you. But then, as you said, in our case, the test depends on the dependencies having been built rather than the other things having been tested. That would be an unusual relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that we have these things set up. Oh, go ahead, Austin. Sorry.
The add caching command that we just ran, that's available as of the latest major version of Lerna 6.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah. I think we're on 6.4.
6.4.1. Yep.
Lerna version. Yeah, I think it was telling us this too in some of the logs up above. just telling us
Yep.
what. Yeah, right here. It'll notice, I guess,
Yeah.
with this version of the CLI. So cool. But now that we've set, so I guess there's two things we did here. One is we set cacheable operations. So this means just right out of the box, if we were to run build again. So I'm just going to hit that run build. It's going to do the weird thing because my terminal's so narrow again. But there, we ran it once, and running it twice, we got that instantly. 12 milliseconds. That's faster than I've actually ever seen it before. So, Max is asking, he's not satisfied with 6. He wants 7. So, James, is your refactor going to put it at 7, or are you going to stick with 6 for now?
It's not something that should have any impact on Lerna users, so it's just part of the next feature release. Lerna 7, we've published a Lerna 7 roadmap on the discussions board, so I could give you a link to share for that.
Sure.
But we're aiming for kind of May time, I would say, late April, early May, probably for Lerna v7.
Very cool. So caching was just one step of this. I think some of the really cool stuff actually comes from what we can do now to our package.jsons though. Because like we mentioned, because the dependencies are now specified here, where builds just depend on things we depend on, builds of things we depend on, looking at that NX project graph again, we can actually remove all of the manual dependency steps that we had here. So in the case of the script, we can just say run jest now. And this looks even better when we do inside of the package.json here. For our build, we can simplify this down to TSC. And this one we can simplify down to jest, because all these things are actually specified for us already. I think now, if we run the build, so we can see that one, we busted the cache because we touched both of these project JSONs. But now too, when we run this, we cut down our 12 milliseconds to 11. I don't know if that actually mattered all that much, but we just replayed both of those things from cache. And I think too, if we were to do something like NX is smart enough that if, for example, I don't know, is odd was cached, but is even wasn't, we would have pulled is odd from cache immediately and then run the build from is even, and yeah, everything just would have worked. So that's much nicer than what we had seen before. Let me grab here. So James had just shared with me. So this is the is this the roadmap for Lerna 7?
Yeah.
7 roadmap. There we go. So if anyone's interested, we can make sure to share that. But yeah, I think that
you could also now run NX Graph again.
Let's do
because
that.
One thing we support in NX Task Runner in recent versions is the visualization of your tasks in the graph view as well. So in the top left, we've got projects, but you can also select tasks. And so we can show that the relationship exists between the is even build and the is odd build.
Yeah. And here, yeah, so this is especially interesting because the test here, is this right? The is even test will depend on the is odd build, but I guess it should depend on the is even build too. I guess we don't see that visualized. Oh, maybe I actually configured that incorrectly. If we go to the NX, oops.
So
NX,
I think what we're missing is the relationship between self. We've got the dependency relationship specified, but we haven't got a self definition.
Right. Yeah. That was, I guess, something I had missed. So the test
NX Graph to the rescue. That's why it's good to visualize these things for humans rather than configuration files. So the NX Graph tool can really help because that shone a spotlight on something being missing and something not matching our mental model of what we were expecting.
Exactly. Wow. The graph saved us.
I wish we'd planned, like if we'd planned that would have been brilliant. It's a miracle that that just happened organically.
We just stumbled into that. It was beautiful. Okay, show all tasks. Okay, so this looks like what we'd expect, and changing it to tests and show all tasks. Hey, that looks more like what we'd expect. Nice. Good deal.
And so it also highly it shows we have a tiny mono repo here. We have 2 packages, but you can already see the complexity that just naturally evolves when you have multiple tasks and multiple projects with relationships between them. We have an interesting looking graph here. But it's very easy to understand because the arrows and the blocks are very, very clear. But it just shows that this scaled, like this tooling just helps you so much as your monorepo scales. Have the fact that the tooling understands how all these things fit together, and you're not just piecing together script A calling script B manually. It's so much nicer this way.
Yeah. Well, if we were looking at my, like what I was doing in the original scripts for the package JSON, I was doing this. Like this, the complexity represented in this graph was what I was having to create to make sure that there wasn't a set order we had to run those scripts in, right? So by bringing in NX and the tooling we have available here, those things are completely out of mind to me. I've created in what, like if we look at our NX JSON, this is like 20 lines of configuration, and now I no longer have to worry about that in any way.
And none of it references your specific projects. So when you create 5 more projects, you don't need any additional configuration. It's already covered by the structure here. These are the defaults for every project that exists in the workspace.
Exactly. We've got a question in chat here from Sheikh Salman again. How to use an external package locally in an NX integrated version. Enforces the project structure. I can't just copy and paste an NPM library locally like I can do with Lerna. Okay, so an external package locally. Maybe I'm missing the question. But yeah, like normally, like if you wanted to use an external package, you just normally just add that, like use yarn add to add that package into like your dependencies and then use it that way. But maybe I'm missing. Like, are you wanting to pull it in so you can modify it yourself? Maybe, I don't know. James, do you have any ideas here?
Well, to be honest, it's kind of the opposite question as the topic of this like session. We're trying to focus on Lerna benefiting from NX, whereas this is trying to be like specifically in an NX workspace, which is not what we're dealing with here. This is a Lerna workspace that we're sprinkling the NX task runner into using Lerna run. So my honestly, my top advice would be if you scroll up to the comment from Zach to the Narwhal community Slack, and you go into the Narwhal community Slack, and if you ask that exact same question, some of the team will be very happy to help you with your NX workspace issue there.
Yeah,
because
Max is already
unfortunately,
trying to answer
it will take us a while to even truly visualize what you're asking about. That's the reason why I say that. So if you ask it there, you'll be able to share more code examples, potentially link a repo, and one of the team will help you out.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part about these live things is as interactive as they are, they're still a little bit one-sided. Just we can't get a timely answer, unfortunately. But yeah, so it maybe popping off the stack back to where we were at with Lerna. I think now we've created inside of our workspace like a really robust system for how these tasks are going to go. And if they wanted to grow, I don't know if we wanted to do some sort of like is prime at some point in the future. Maybe that would actually be a helpful function to publish at some point. But do we want to try to publish these out to NPM now? Can we do that live?
Sure.
Yeah.
If you
how do we do that,
NPM,
y'all? I didn't get that far in my dry run, but I think it's pretty simple to do at this point, right?
Yeah. Do you have an NPM account? That's the first question.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I do have that.
Yep. And you'll probably need to commit what you've got as well.
Gotcha.
So Lerna, when maybe I'm getting ahead here, but Lerna likes it when you've committed everything first.
Oops. So. Yeah. So I'll just call like this version 0.0.0. Does that work?
Sure.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So what do I do next, Austin?
What to do next? Well, if we want to use Lerna to decide to tag a version, then we can run npx Lerna version. And this will do a couple of things if you go ahead and run it.
So you don't have a git remote right now, which obviously would be, so that's the first thing that's going to come up. So normally, obviously, when you create a Git repo, you're going to be linking that to some remote repository on GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, whatever. So by default, that is how Lerna will expect things to work, that you will have an origin that you can interact with.
Gotcha. Should I do it?
Yep.
Let's do it. We'll create a new public repository. We'll just throw it in Zactoros instead of an X for now. I think that's fine. Copy that, paste that in. So we'll add a remote. Okay, so how was Lerna able to tell? Was that just running through git remote that there was no remotes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we can run.
Lerna performs a few checks. Lerna performs a few checks like that to make sure that the operation wouldn't fail midway through, because Lerna version by default will push to your remote. It creates tags and then pushes them.
I remember that. Okay, cool. So now I can run version, and let's see what happens.
Go for it.
Okay, look at that. I probably shouldn't have commented 0.0.0, but let's say this is a major release. We have full testing, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was just your commit message, though, so it doesn't make too much difference the contents of that commit message.
Yeah, that's true.
So Lerna version works in a few different ways. You can either do what you've done here and just say Lerna version and then get this interactive prompt, but you can also specify any number of things directly with the version command as an argument. So you could say Lerna version patch or Lerna version minor or Lerna version major. You could give it an exact version that you want to publish. So you could do those things, and then you won't need to do not -- major, just the word major.
Yep.
Oh, cool. Like
any semver valid token basically can go in that slot.
Cool. Okay. So if we wanted to say this is 777, that would work as well.
That would work as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. So let's put it at major, and boom, boom, boom. Okay.
So
it's giving us a
you
preview.
skipped the interactive prompt for selecting a version because you preloaded the version into the command.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's asking us for confirmation. So it didn't just do it for us, which is kind of nice, because this is going to actually set something in our Git history that will actually be pretty hard to remove, right?
Yeah, it's cumbersome to remove,
That was one of the biggest problems I had hit when running this stuff before. But yeah, go ahead, Dustin.
Yep. So one thing just to note is that by default, Lerna likes to keep the version in sync of all of the packages when you're publishing a new version. So you didn't have to specify which packages you wanted to release the major version for. Lerna detected that they all changed, and Lerna also knows that you want to use that version 1.0.0 for all of them. And that's depicted in lerna.json under the version property.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yep. So as we run this, it will actually update this field as well as the package.json versions. Is that the idea?
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Very cool. Should I hit yes here?
Yeah.
Let's do it. There it did. Pushing tags finished. All right.
If you do a git log now, you'll see the tag in place on your commit that you previously did.
Nice. Look at that.
So, Yep. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. We created a release tag. Sorry. A release commit. Sorry.
Right. Cool. So we can see here our commits. This was all the changes we had. This tag in, well, it looks like it also pushed to origin main for us too.
Yeah. So nice. that update that Austin mentioned about updating the version fields, it's already committed those changes for you and pushed them up as part of the release. So you'll notice on your file system, you've got no changes outstanding. So the V1 is in all your version fields and the Lerna JSON, and that's already been committed as part of the release.
Right.
You can skip that if you want to. You can skip that part of the release, but the default is to just update everything as part of the release so that you don't have to do anything manually.
Gotcha. So so really all that this commit was specifically was touching the version numbers, I imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And if you were doing changelog generation, it would also include updates to changelog markdown files.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And that's supported natively. What would I do to add the changelogs?
So the usual way to do the changelog is to use conventional commits, so that the type of changes can be inferred from the commit structure. So there's an extension for Lerna where you can install conventional conventional changelog packages, conventional changelog Angular, conventional changelog core, those kind of things. And then you can set conventional commits true on the version command, or set it in your Lerna JSON so that it knows to look for those packages.
So in my Lerna JSON, it would be, I guess we don't have IntelliSense for that, but conventional commits.
So it's the Lerna JSON works by setting default values for commands. So you'd set it on the version command specifically.
I see.
So you would do command, and then that's an object, and then the name of the command is version, and then conventional commits true.
Version, and then this would be an object with this.
And so anything you specify in here will be the same as if you specified it every time you run the version command.
Cool. I did not know that, so that's good to know. And so I imagine then you can do any of the other Lerna commands. You can also provide default options there.
And pretty much any option that's in the documentation for Lerna can be specified as that -- flag or put in the Lerna JSON if it's something that you're always using.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Cool. Well, we've versioned this. Are we ready to publish now?
Yep.
How do we do that? Is that just Lerna publish?
Lerna publish, and then there's an argument that you give it to tell it where to look for the information to publish. Sorry, Austin, you can take it away.
Yeah, and and that argument in this case is going to be from -get. And there's no two dashes. It's just a positional argument. So just a space. Yep.
Like so.
Yes. And what that is going to do is that tells Lerna that to look at the Git history for a tag that it recognizes as a release tag. And since we used Lerna to version and create that tag, it automatically will detect that and know that's the one that we want to publish.
That makes sense. Opening up here in GitHub, tags. There it is. Version 1.0, 4 minutes ago. Cool. So that was all handled for us by Lerna. I didn't know. I didn't even need to know that was a thing.
You can also take it a step further. When you're using the changelog generation, you can you can create a GitHub release automatically with that changelog data as well. So as well as creating the tag, it will create a release and tie that to the tag. So we do that on the Lerna repo itself. You can have a look at the Lerna repo to have a look at how that works.
Very cool.
It's just an argument to Lerna version to get it to do that. Or again, you can set it in the Lerna version. You just say create release equals GitHub, and it'll do that for you.
Very cool. So hitting here on from Git, tree has uncommitted changes. Oh, because I did this. Let's back that out. I was just demonstrating that anyways, but it was good that it actually called that out. So I guess that's probably the point. But yeah, are you sure you want to publish these packages? I'm pretty sure. It really wants to make sure. I guess help is the default there. I did see that with the capital H, but yeah. Okay, look at that. Shall we on NPM?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Let's take a look. For the lulz is even.
To-do description. There we go. I saw it come up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There it is. How many? No downloads yet. It's okay because we only published a few seconds ago. But yeah, to-do description. Very cool.
Yep. Can you see the files that were actually published?
I think so.
Yeah, the code tab, the beta code tab. You can.
Okay, there it is. Okay, so
this
is our package.
Yeah. So one thing to note is that Lerna, unless specified otherwise, assumes that it's just publishing your whole package in your source tree, right? So if you have additional build steps and you want to build a dist folder that not only has just your transpiled JavaScript,
right,
but it also has a separate package JSON and everything, then that's something you have to really tell Lerna. Otherwise, it's just going to publish everything that it finds in there.
Right, because I guess we did tell it to find our via the package.json file that we can see here. We did tell it that our files are going to be in dist, but
Yeah.
there's nothing about here where we actually ran the build, and we'd probably want to make sure that was a step in sort of doing all this, correct? Otherwise, the dist wouldn't be there, or maybe the disk would have been out of date, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lerna supports npm lifecycle hooks, so you can do things like pre-version and execute builds during pre-version, things like that.
Gotcha.
Pre-publish.
So that's how we would probably do that, is inside of each one of these packages, pre-version, we'd make sure the build gets run.
Yeah, as Austin says, probably pre-publish is where you'd want to make sure it's happened, because your version is more to do with your source controlled files, whereas the publish is more to do with your dist files, which you're not tracking in source control. So
yeah, do those hooks come in? I guess those are inside of scripts, right?
They're just scripts. Yeah, they're just scripts with specific names.
Magic scripts. Yeah. So pre-version would be I guess Lerna run build, and would we use the scope here? Probably equals.
I think when it's nested in the package, it knows it's only dealing with that one, but I can't be sure these days. There's too many build tools in my head.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't happen to hit that one specifically in my dry run, but then pre-publish to I guess I missed the comma up here, but that would just look like the same thing.
Yeah, you don't really need it on the pre-version one, because your versioning is just dealing with your source control files, whereas your build is producing stuff you're not tracking in source control. So yeah, I misspoke when I said pre-version. Pre-publish is the one that makes the most sense.
So we can, even if we haven't run the build yet at the version step, that doesn't matter, because versioning is just going to send it up, like set the tag in Git and set those things up. So even if we haven't run the build yet, it's fine to do that at the pre-publish, because then those things are already Git ignored. So it's not going to change anything of our Git, but it will make sure that our dist, the contents of our dist, is accurate right before publishing.
Yeah.
So cool. Hey, well, we did it. we came full circle. We've published our package with the amazing description that it has. So,
yeah.
What happened to the description here? Was this one of y'all?
That's what Lerna generates. Yeah, it's always been the case as far as I know.
Are you serious? That's
what HMS Pinafore or whatever it is. Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yeah. That's I forget how the song goes, but it sounds familiar. Is it still happening? Did I miss it? You missed most of it, Josh.
Hi, Josh. How are you?
Welcome.
Welcome, Josh.
We just published our very own is even package that you can go and install now from npm. So you're welcome.
Yeah. In fact, you should definitely do it so Zach can never delete it, because once you've installed a package, you can't delete it again. So.
Oh no, I'm forever enslaved by my meme. All of JavaScript now depends on me. But yeah, if you look at like, there's actually an is even package out there, which has an unreasonable amount of weekly downloads. So we could now take over. We could now shoulder this responsibility if we wanted to. Yeah, exactly. 3 security vulnerabilities.
You're looking at the 3 security vulnerabilities right here on screen. Zach, Austin, and James. We are the 3 security vulnerabilities.
Yeah, the human factor. That's the largest security vulnerability. But yeah, let me grab, because I wanted to make sure I mentioned our upgrade page, because what we've kind of gone through is in this live stream, we've kind of gone through starting a fresh repository from just from scratch, which I don't know if that many people would be using Lerna if they're making something new. Maybe it is the case that you've worked with Lerna in the past and you're used to it. That may be a valid use case for doing so, but probably if you're getting started now, you'd probably want to go with NX or something more modern just to get started. But there are a lot of workspaces out there that are using Lerna just because they were using Lerna, because they were made in 2015 or before a lot of these other options popped up. So if you go to lerna.js.org/upgrade, this will show you how you can bring the latest tools into your Lerna experience. I think it's a pretty good experience going from older versions, so like 4 and under, to now 6. You just get a lot of benefits on top of what you already have. And we've helped a lot of people, I think, already upgrade some of their more legacy workspaces. And it's been, not that hefty of a lift. And I think, as we mentioned at the start, we've generously offered, or James has generously offered, to help folks if they are looking to upgrade from a legacy Lerna to something more recent. We'd be happy to do that. And if you can see,
I just want to augment what Zach said to just make it clear that Lerna itself is not a legacy tool, but there are ways of using Lerna that are from a legacy mindset, if you like. Lerna had to do so much in the beginning because there was no help from the package managers. All of that specific tooling within Lerna is outdated because the package managers have shot past it, and those are focused on what they do best, package management. Lerna still excels at versioning and publishing, like we've demoed here today. And even if you use NX, I would still recommend considering Lerna for your versioning and packaging concerns. We use it everywhere. The NX repo uses Lerna to version and publish itself because NX doesn't focus on that use case. So they are complementary tools as well. You can forget NX exists for the most part. If you just want to use Lerna, that's absolutely fine. But we've given the power of the NX task runner, specifically the task runner, to Lerna, because as you've seen, the huge benefits with visualizing the dependency graph of projects and tasks and stuff like that. We'd done all that. We'd spent 5 years building that, and we knew we could enable it in Lerna for free. And all of that caching. One thing we haven't even touched on in this is you can take that cache and you can distribute it amongst team members and different machines using NX Cloud. Lerna users get all of that for free as well. So that's one of the reasons why we hook NX into Lerna, but it's an implementation detail. It's not something you need to care too much about how NX works in order to get the most out of Lerna. It's just this utility, this script, because configuration script and that utility command we showed, add caching, which will give you everything you need to be up and running with the best task runner inside of Lerna. And Lerna's not going anywhere. Lerna's versioning and publishing, we're looking to improve continuously. Josh is on the meeting, and we are using NX and Lerna together on TypeScript ESLint as well, which is a massive community project.
Awesome.
So it's a great combination. They're great in isolation from one another, and both are going to be strong into the future.
Yeah. When you mentioned NX Cloud, by the way, with the distributed caching, James, that was one thing that actually NX init gave us that the Lerna command didn't. Because when I ran through my drawing, I used NX init because I wasn't aware of the Lerna specific command. That one will actually ask you if you want to add distributed task running. I don't know if we ran it again. Yeah. Shout out to TypeScript ESLint. Y'all do great work there. Thank you for linting all my stuff without me ever having to worry about it, James.
If you want an explicit return type, we will make sure you have one.
There we go. We got it. We got to boost that spiciness. Post that on our Twitter or something. But yeah, I'm curious.
There's enough bad takes on the internet today about enforcing return types or not.
Is there? I'm lost in my own file system, but yeah, there we go.
Lost in the depths of the terminal.
Yeah, I think. So running NX init, we can hit yes here. I believe this will now add the task runner for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we can see that just as the git changes here, the git diffs marked on the side, we changed our runner to use NX Cloud. We also generated, an access token for us. So this is a public token for our workspace. I think now if we run a build, where's the build? I should have just typed it out. But yeah, now we have this nice link that we can open, which is especially nice for some of these things where we have, let me make that a little bit bigger, but we have now like multiple commands that were being run. If we want to isolate these down to their specific logs, or like if one of them failed, we can easily jump to NXCloud pretty seamlessly to get into that. But we have gone 15 minutes over time already, so I'll make sure we can let James and Austin go. And thanks y'all for joining and for coming on this experience with us. And yeah, we'll see y'all next time. I think next time we'll probably be sitting down with Nathan Walker and talking about converting from React to Solid, and that should be a fun one. So
Nice.
yeah. Austin, James, thanks again for showing up.
Yep. Thank
Always
you very much.
appreciate it all.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, cheers, y'all.